Welcome to We Hear Her. I am Erin Trenbeth Murray.
And I am Jennifer Bean.
We're here today with another amazing woman who's sharing her story and insights to lessons learned. Hi there, this is Erin Trenbeth Murray with our We Hear Her podcast through Women Who Succeed. And I'm so excited today to get to speak to Chiao-ih Hui, who is one of our members and has a really interesting background, combination of business and tech all rolled into one. She is the Director of Global Operations at Arcserve, a data encryption, backup, and recovery leader. Her background in engineering and business has given her the opportunities in research with small R&D firms to program management in IPO startups and working in large organizations such as Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. Wow. Chiao-ih received a Bachelor of Science in Computer Engineering from the Electrical and Computer Engineering Department at the University of Utah and a Master in Business Administration from the University of Utah, David Eccles School of Business. Chiao-ih has been honored as the youngest Rising Star Top 40 Under 40 by Utah Business Magazine, has received the Rising Star 2010 Women Tech Award from Women Tech Council, and is a governor-appointed member of the State of Utah's Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics Action Center Board. Lastly, but most importantly, as we're going to chat today, Chiao-ih loves being a mother, is passionate about her new places and new foods, and finds being active and outside restorative. She, her husband, young sons live in Salt Lake City, and they have a beloved dog who I'd love to learn the dog's name since I don't have that. And with that, I'm going to introduce Chiao-ih.
Hello. Our dog's name is Coda.
Coda. What kind of dog is Coda?
He is a lab and Australian shepherd mix.
Nice.
Yes, he was a pandemic puppy.
Oh, I needed one of those. I couldn't quite get it over the finish line with the husband, but well, I'm so glad you took time to be with us. You have quite the busy life, and we're really grateful that you're involved with Women Who Succeed and bringing in that science and technology elements to the group. But I'd love to learn a little bit more about you personally. And you mentioned to me earlier from Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me a little bit about where you're from and what brought you here.
Yeah. So I was born in Memphis. Mm-hmm. Apparently, I've been to Graceland many times. We left before I was one, though. And so my parents went out there. My parents are from Taiwan. Mm-hmm. And they went out there. My mom went out there as a nurse, and my dad went for graduate school. And then after graduate school, they moved to Salt Lake here, and we've been here ever since.
Where'd you go to high school?
I went to Skyline High School.
I knew you. I don't know why I knew that. I knew you were going to say that. A city girl. So tell me a little bit more about your mom and dad. What was it like growing up in your family?
You know, it's so funny because they are the opposite of what you'd think of as like a stereotypical Asian immigrant family, right? Like all of my peers whose families also came from Taiwan as immigrants, they had a lot of Kumon. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's like an after-school math and reading program.
Yeah.
They had a lot of Kumon. They had a lot of extra this and that, and you know, they were really pressured to get straight A's and go to the Ivy League schools. And my parents were literally, my mom was just like, don't kill yourself, just pass.
Oh my
right? She's like, it's not worth it.
Just get over there.
Just pass. Yeah. And it's so funny because I wonder if because of that attitude, I have a younger brother, and we had to take it upon ourselves, right? Like, we're not getting that pressure from mom and dad. We need to get our own stuff together. Oh. And then talking to them now, because I'm forcing my child to go through Kumon, right? And my mom's just like, why are you doing that? You guys turned out just fine.
Oh, that's funny.
He hates it. He's going to hate math, you know? And it's so funny because we talk about this all the time. Like, because you guys didn't have me do it, I feel like my peers were just, I don't know, they had it more together maybe. I don't know. But it's so funny because they're not your stereotypical go get straight A's, you know,
Mhm.
go to an Ivy League school. I was like, just do what makes you happy.
What do you think
Just
that what
pass
turning
and do
point
it.
was for her? Why do you think, if culturally she was raised that way, what do you think was the switch to be like, take it easy, relax a little bit, enjoy, smell the roses?
Yeah, you know, I think maybe because she was pushed so hard,
Yeah.
and she was like, I don't know if it's worth it. You
Yeah.
know? And I
Yeah.
don't know if, yeah,
And your mom's one of our members,
yes,
Doris.
yes.
So excited.
Yeah.
Good.
So it's just really funny that they're like that. And also, you know, between the two, my mom's also very much more no nonsense. You know, for instance, I remember when I had my first like bad breakup in high school, right? My mom, she was just like, "Oh, we never liked him anyway.
We never really liked him. It's fine.
It's fine." And my dad was the one who, after dinner, would be like, "Okay, let's go on a walk. You know, let's talk it
The
through."
nurturer.
And yeah. And so they're very non-stereotypical, I guess, in all aspects.
Well, do you think that, how is that influenced or not influenced? It sounds like with your parenting. How many kids do you have?
We have two. We've got two boys.
And how old are they?
They are 7 and 2, soon to be 8 and 3.
Oh my gosh.
And so, yeah, I'm momming so hard right now.
That's a new, I haven't heard that phrase. We would have to use that one. So in your momming hard, kind of, what does it look like in your household compared to how you were raised?
We're extremely structured. And I feel like my kids just need that. Maybe it's just me. It's probably me. I need that. And so yeah, we have, I don't want to say we have strict bedtime, so we have fairly strict guidelines, right? By, you know, we typically try to have dinner started or at least made around 5 so that we can eat at 6. If we're not home to actually make it, I will actually call DoorDash and have it sent.
So you can stay that consistent routine.
Yeah. Because our youngest is 2, almost 3. His bedtime's still around 7:30,
Sure.
right? And so we don't have a huge window of time by the time we both get home from work. And, you know, there's only this tiny bit of time. And we still have dinner and bath time and they want to run around and do silly, crazy things, right? And so there's that where, okay, 6 o'clock, we need to eat. By 7:30, usually it's bath time. And then hopefully, if all goes well, right, everyone's in bed and sleeping by 8. Although very rarely does that go well.
Everyone, including you.
Ideally, yes. Oftentimes, if they are able to go down, oftentimes my husband and I will actually jump back on the computer and just do one last
After their
check,
sleep.
right?
Sure.
Because we're kind of the zero inbox type people. Where it just stresses us out having something in the inbox, even if it's
I liked you. There's so much
spam.
I like about you.
And so,
When I had, my son Jackson, my firstborn, and I cleave to structure myself, and I think it just happens to make me, I think, a happier, better mom. Then I don't feel unwound. But they definitely, I don't think it hurt them, but they're definitely not very structured people themselves. But when he was an infant, like I was recording bowel movements and how much I fed them and what time did I feed them in this little booklet. It's a little crazy time.
Yeah.
But
it's now done by apps.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all like
I didn't know.
click, and you can share the app so like other caretakers, right, know exactly what's happening. They pooped 3 hours ago. They should be pooping again.
Exactly. They're right on my schedule. Oh, that's the definite right in parenting. It's you think you've got it all figured out, but you don't.
Yeah.
You just change it the next month.
That's so true.
So having 2 young sons, it's so fun to hear you as a mom. My boys are 4 years apart. Now they're 22 and 18.
I love that.
What are you hoping your relationship looks like with your sons when they're my son's age?
You know, it's so funny because my sons are 5 years apart, so very close to what you have in your dynamic. And I have a very good friend from college. Her 2 boys are now 17 and 12 or 13. So kind of similar. And I talk to this kind of thing with her all the time, right? And when they're that age, older, they're off doing their own thing. Even my friends' children, right, 13 and 17, they're kind of 17-year-old, definitely. He's got so much with school. He's looking at schools and probably going to be out next year. There's just so much going on. But they're still really close, and I love that. I love that they're so close. And one thing that stresses me out, because she talks about it now, she's like, our oldest is going to be married probably in the next 10 years. And at that point, there's that saying, when they get married, you lose your son, right?
They go with the wife's family.
You gain a daughter-in-law, but you definitely lose your son at that point. And I've seen that certainly with my family, right? And how it works in our dynamic. And that kind of stresses me out. Like, I think about it, I get itchy. And I'm just like, oh no, we're going to, because having kids, especially maybe boys, it's changed everything for me. Like, the second I became a mom, all my priorities shifted, like 180. Like, people are just like, who are you? And so I hope that we remain very close. I hope I like who they end up with. Right?
I often think, like, those poor girls that are going to marry my boys.
I know.
I'm going to be the nightmare mother-in-law. I'm going to try so hard not to be, but I'm just worried.
Oh my gosh. I feel that way too. I feel that way. Like, yeah. And I've had an amazing mother-in-law. I mean, it's been amazing having her, and she's helpful. She's nosy, but in a good way when she needs to be, and not at all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because my husband and I, we were actually together for almost a full decade before we even decided to get engaged. Just because when we first started dating, we were still so young. And never once did she say, so when are you guys going to get married? That was my dad. My dad was the one who was like, hey, so when are you having children before we were married, right? He's like,
what? We could wait.
I've got this herniated disc. If you don't have them soon, I can't, like, hold them and play with them.
You can just turn this along. Yeah. Well, tell me, your boys, you talked a little bit, it kind of makes you itchy or a little stressful. What else causes maybe anxiety or stress a little bit about parenting and trying to be the best mom you possibly can be?
Yeah. One thing I worry quite a bit about is being a helicopter parent, because I feel like I have that tendency anyway. There's this really great book written by the Dean of Admissions at Stanford, and I can't remember her name for the life of me, but it's called How to Raise an Adult. And my concern is, rather than preparing my boys for any path ahead of them, I'm worried that I'm always trying to prep the path so it's easy for them, right? And that's not helpful to them. In any way. They need to be agile. They need to be able to think on their feet. They need to be able to adapt. Just this last year in the pandemic, things have changed so much. And this might happen multiple times in their lifetime. And they need to be prepared. Right? And so it's the idea of, how do you prepare children so that they can adapt to any awful thing thrown in front of them? Not just adapt from an emotional, whatever perspective, but also from a career perspective, right? We have people changing their careers in droves right now because they're realizing, I don't have to deal with that. I don't want to deal with certain things. And how do you prepare them so that they can make that shift whenever it's right for them throughout their lifetime?
It's a tough balance, though, isn't it? Because you're trying to make sure they're not failing. But yet you want them to fail fast and be gracious at it and learn from it and pivot and overcome. But I found it really, really hard, especially elementary and the first part of junior high, in letting my boys fail. And I wish I would have let them fail more and not saved them so much, because high school, they're on their own. Like, they're really on their own. And I think I padded the landing a little bit too much. In fact, a helicopter mom, Harrison, in third grade drew me a picture and framed it for Mother's Day, and it was a helicopter, and he wrote "helicopter mom" on it. I have it in my office as a reminder.
That's kind of cute.
kind of not and scary at the same time. Well, I want to ask you, I know you're put forth, I mean, you were willing to talk to me today about motherhood and talk a little bit about your parents. They came from Taiwan.
Mhm.
Have you, with your background and heritage, are you concerned at all about your children with racism,
Mhm.
how that may be affecting them, the change in the landscape? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's especially poignant now, right?
Yeah.
So in the last couple of years, certainly in the last 4 years, I saw this statistic that Asian hate has actually gone up by like 380%.
That's horrible.
And, you hear about random attacks on elderly people,
Yeah.
right, of all things. Um, I will say we're fortunate enough that the schools that my children are in, they really embrace that heritage. So they haven't felt that or seen that yet.
Mhm.
But I will say, there was a point where, my husband being Caucasian, my children don't look fully
Mhm.
Chinese.
Mhm.
And there was a moment in time I was grateful for that. Because you do hear about, the 8-year-old in his second grade and friends that he's known since kindergarten making fun of him, right? Or saying, go back to where you're from. And he's like, I was freaking born here.
Right.
I'm from down the street. And so yeah, it's something that I'm very concerned about. I personally don't know how to combat that except to teach them and instill them to be proud of who they are, and part of that is always act with integrity. And so, and know that just because someone calls you a name doesn't mean that is part of your identity.
Right.
If anything, it's them, right?
For sure.
It's them. And understanding if they're trying to say something that is mean and hurtful, it's because that's probably something that has felt mean and hurtful to them, for them to turn around to know how to even use that kind of language. And so, I don't know, it's hard. It's so hard. And it's something I haven't had to address with my 2-year-old, right? Because he's still into dinosaurs and not really fully aware of anything else at this point. But some of these conversations we have started having with my 7 and almost 8-year-old.
Sure.
And he doesn't get it, right? He's like, well, how come, this and how come that? And, his class is really diverse, which is also nice. They embrace everything. In fact, he recently, another child in his class has decided, I don't know if they're trying out a new gender or what, but instead of a female sounding name, they now have a male sounding name. And the class has fully embraced this little person.
Oh, that's
and
great.
It's no big deal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We're now going to call this person this name instead. And it's not a big deal. And they still typically play with the same group of girls, right? And I even asked my son, have you invited him, this person to play with your group of boys? Because they have separated out to that a little bit more.
Sure, they're 7 or 8. Yeah, they're gonna.
Yeah, and my son has said, yeah, we've tried, but they want to still play with
Sure.
Emily and so, and so it's all right, cool. And they're just super open and just loving to everybody in their class. And so luckily so far we haven't had any incidents, but it's certainly something that I'm trying to wrap my head around, how to prep the boys.
Right, because it's likely, unfortunately,
it's likely they'll run into something.
Some ugly person that can't. Yeah.
And they wouldn't, and here's the thing, it's somebody who is going to know enough about them to know their heritage, because they don't look, they're clearly mixed race.
Yeah.
You can't tell what they are.
Yeah.
So it's going to come from somebody who knows exactly what their makeup is, right? Their ethnic makeup. And it's going to be hurtful when it happens.
It's so hard for a mom. I can't even imagine. I mean, I honestly can't, because you do everything you can to protect every element, physical or emotional, from your children. It's hard when they stop getting invited to a birthday party, or most of the class was invited, but 4 kids weren't, or something. It just is so heart-wrenching. But that is a whole nother level. I mean, just hearing you when you were talking, we both kind of teared up, and it broke my heart when you said something to the effect of, early on, you said, I don't, I think you said they don't look, my husband's Caucasian, they don't look Chinese, and I was okay with that. Like, just to negate the pain and suffering that could come. And I can't even imagine when you see stories on the news how I would be infuriated. I mean, I am infuriated, but that would make me just out of my skin, and the protective mama bear, I bet, just comes out.
And what's frustrating is you hear about these stories and the adults in the situation don't do anything, right? The teachers don't say anything. The administration of that school doesn't say anything. Or maybe they have, and it's just not in the article, right?
Yeah.
Well, so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. But that alone is just like, where are the adults in this situation?
Yeah.
Where are the adults? And then half the time you wonder, well, maybe they feel the same way, right? And that's why they're not stepping in.
And by not saying anything, you're basically endorsing it.
Exactly.
For sure.
Exactly. And that's not okay.
Well, you're I feel like I could talk to you for like 24 hours straight, but I'd love for you, as we kind of close out, I mean, you clearly are a very invested mother, deeply engaged, trying to find that balance of structure and happiness and freedom.
Yeah.
If you find it, let me know what that is. But do you have, I was thinking later today, we're going to be talking to some folks that as male allies, and my boys, it's a huge priority for me to raise them to be respectful of all people, but especially women. And that's been really important for me. And I love it if you might be able to share some advice with any young men out there that might hear this podcast about how they can look or approach or think about helping young women to build their confidence.
You know, that's such a good question, and it goes back to this allyship, right? And to be an ally, I think somebody needs to know what to look out for. For example, if you're in a group setting and there is a young woman who is always interrupted, be the person to say, well, hang on, let her finish.
Ooh, that's a good example. I like that one.
Or stuff like that people just tend to naturally do. They don't mean to do it, right? I'm sure people who are the interrupters, they're not trying to specifically always step on somebody, but be that person. And I guess it doesn't need to be, it could be for anybody, right? Even if another male is often being interrupted, stop that other person and say, well, hang on, let them finish their thought, but then we'll get to yours, right? And I think that's a good start. There's just so much of just the little things that people can do that makes it more cognizant in a group setting. Okay, we need to ensure people are able to get their thoughts out and speak freely without feeling conscious that they're going to say something wrong, right? And stand up, right? Stand up. That's what I tell my oldest all the time. If you see something, stand up for that person. And what's interesting is he's done this ever since 3 pre-K, 4 pre-K, and he now, I feel like it has strengthened his leadership abilities. Because when you're 3 or 4, your mom's telling you, speak up, stand up. Don't, if you see somebody being mean to another person, tell them to stop, right? And it's easier when you're 3 to 4 to start doing that kind of thing. And now that he is 8 years old with his peers, he's told me stories where someone will say something and start to be mean to another person and see that he's nearby and then not. And I think, if anything, I mean, that kind of presence where people know we're going to be safe when he's around, I think that's a huge, huge thing. And it makes me really proud to know that he's known as somebody who will stick up for other people when people are being mean.
Right? Is that the ultimate, is like when you know the pride that your child is kind.
Yeah.
advocates for others, respectful, looks out for the underdog. Like, I love that. That fills my heart.
And every night, our ritual every night, and this is probably why bedtime drags so long. But we talk about, and we should do it at the dinner table, but for some reason he doesn't talk about it at the dinner table. He's tucked in. I'm trying to pretend to sleep next to him too, so he'll just sleep, right?
Yeah.
But he'll say, but we talk about what's the best part of your day, what's the worst part of your day, and what did you do to be kind? And he loves it. He loves it. There was one night I was out for a business dinner, so I got home late. My husband did bedtime. I walked, it was late. He should have been sleeping. And I walked by his room, and I heard him go, Mom, Mom. No, my first reaction was, what are you doing up, right? He's like, Mom, I need to tell you about the best part and worst part of my day.
Oh.
Then he was like, and I've got a really good kind story. Come in, And so it was great. It was really good that he saves these stories for
Mama.
me. Yeah.
For Mama. Well, I love that. Well, Chiaoih, thank you so much for spending time with us on the podcast. I know a lot. It'll be out there, young women, hopefully young men, as well as the women in our group and others. I just think it's just remarkable. You're such a incredibly well-rounded, I guess is the word. Like, you're so bright and accomplished, but you're so down to earth at the same time. And I loved more than anything when you and I were emailing a little bit and you suggested the conversation about motherhood. I'm like, she could talk about her engineering degree. She could talk about all this tech stuff and go way above my head. And I love that is your number one priority. So
thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
My pleasure. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for taking time to hear her. Join our efforts and learn more at womenwhosucceed.org. A big thank you to our sponsor, the Clark and Christine Ivory Foundation.